What's going on, guys? Welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report. Good to have you here as we recap all of the latest on your favorite team. We're going to recap the latest news and rumors. We're going to talk about Week 14 against the Jags and whether or not Trevor Lawrence will be available for Duval. And then we're going to take a little peek ahead, just a little peek ahead to 2024 NFL free agency. I thought you guys might want to just wet your beak. I'm not trying to take a bath in free agency, Trace. We're just dipping our toe in. Like, not as bad as Michael Scott falling in the koi pond.
But more like
that one guy when they get on vacation to the beach runs into the water with their shoes and socks still on.
Yeah.
Just to be like, we finally made it.
We did get sand in the shoes and all.
Exactly. All right, so we got all that and more coming up on today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Now, before we get this plane off the ground, shout out your city for me down in the chat. Let me know where you are tuning in from while we let the audience build up a little bit. It's always good to see where our viewers are watching from. I know we've got Ty Man, the Buckeye. Trace and I were just joking while the intro video was rolling. Like, Ty Man, I think you could come to the Chat Sports Studios and have it be your first time, but you'd walk around like you've been here a million times.
Yeah, like everyone would know you, Ty, man. It's like we're all best friends because
Yeah.
you're with all of us all the time. It's amazing.
Exactly. Mr. Random is in Memphis. Clinton, quick sidebar about Memphis. You know how COVID took away something you were really looking forward to doing, like a plan?
Yes.
I was really looking forward to going to Rib Fest. Barbecue Fest in Memphis.
I want to go to Rib Fest, and I also really want to go to Beale Street Music Festival.
Yeah, and so me and my friend, my roommate at the time, who was from Memphis, we had the whole thing planned out. And that's just one of those things, didn't get to do it, but whatever. Okay, let's see. We got Tennessee in the house. We got Cincinnati. Ken G is in the house. Mac is watching from Toledo, Ohio. Medina, Ohio's here. Got a lot of people from the Buckeye State, as expected. Melbourne, Florida. We got AFX Apocalypse. You still hold a very, very soft spot in all of our hearts, AFX. Don't worry, buddy. Fat Gaming is in Cleveland. Canton, Ohio. Come to Connecticut to get some pizza. Ken, I was listening to part of my take. It was PMT. And they had Dan Orlovsky on a while ago. And I didn't realize this. Connecticut is better pizza than New York, a lot of people say. So I do want to go check out. Apparently, there's a spot in Fairfield, Connecticut that has the best pizza in America. I want to go check that out. Clinton Fisher, what do I think about Joe Flacco? I think he's the starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Iron Patel is watching from Cleveland. Josh is at his home base in Temperance, Michigan. We got Chicago 847 in the house. Beale Street is the best. Now we're having pizza talk conversations here. Okay, so now, before we get on to the rest of our show here, really quickly, I do have to tell you guys about our awesome sponsor today, which is Factor. This holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offer 100% of our delivery emissions and source 100%. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions and source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Now, thanks to Factor, they gave me a free sample just to, wet my beak a little bit, and I loved all the meals I've had so far. So it's got the PD stamp of approval. Go to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Moving on here, let's talk about this upcoming weekend slate of games here as we have the Browns and Jags squaring off in Cleveland. Predict the score. Everyone was doom and gloom about the Browns going into this game after the loss in LA and after the loss in Denver, and I don't blame you for that, right? You lose 2 in a row, it's hard to be super optimistic. But all of a sudden, the Jags are in the same boat the Browns are in. That is, they might be out their starting quarterback. And that sucks. People are going to say, oh, I really wanted Trevor Lawrence to play. And part of me was like, you're just saying that to get brownie points on Twitter because you don't want to come across as a guy who roots for injuries. But like Trevor Lawrence is someone who I just want to see succeed. I was a big fan of his at Clemson. I think he's an all-around great guy, and he's helping a Jags franchise turn around that's been down in the dumps for so long. So I hope that Trevor Lawrence does recover and he is available for the playoffs because that's going to be a good Jags team in January. But for this week, without Trevor Lawrence, it's going to be a lot easier for the Browns. Let's just call it what it is, to knock off Jacksonville. So predict the score. I don't think Trevor Lawrence will be available on Sunday, but quarterbacks are always a different breed, right? They're going to play through a lot more than maybe other players would, especially an ankle injury for a quarterback. Trevor Lawrence might go, hey, I'll just go in shotgun and throw out of the pocket all game long. But I'm not missing a game. I'm not missing a start. I don't think Trevor Lawrence has not missed a single game in his NFL career. 47 straight. I mean, played every single game in 2021, 2022. So 17 plus 17, 34, and he's played 12 games so far this year. 46 games? Yeah. So I think 47 would be this game. Okay. So predict the score for me. Chumpathon, 16-7 Brownies. Lil Beam, 27-14 Browns. Madden King is Denzel back. Denzel Ward is still dealing with a shoulder injury. It's Tuesday, so we won't get the official injury report until tomorrow. Hopefully, after a 2-game absence, he will be ready to return. Him not going on IR was a big sign that the Browns don't believe it was an injury that would cost him 4 games. He's already missed 2, so if he's going to miss 1 more, 3 games, hopefully that's the last game he would miss. Otherwise, it would have made sense to put him on IR, shut him down for 4 weeks. He was going to miss 4 weeks anyway and get an extra roster spot in the meantime. Mark Smith saying, go Bears. Bear down, Mark. Time Man the Buckeye, 24-17 Brownies. Let's see. We got AFX Apocalypse. I don't know what you're doing in the chat, dude. Mr. Random, Browns 27-10. Clinton Fisher, 27-10 Brownies. And then Pavel, 14-21 Browns win. Pavel going with a very unique way of giving us his score prediction. Now, we're going to do a mailbag at the end of today's show. So get those questions in right now. Use hashtag Browns, or you can super chat if you would like. And if you super chat, we guarantee your question gets on screen. Now, one other super chat plug, I guess I'll say, for lack of a better term. My girlfriend and I did Christmas cards this year, as we did last year and the year before that. And we have a few left over, which she allowed me to use a few of those on my wonderful viewers here at the Browns Report. Now, I'm not quite sure who's interested in a Christmas card, and I don't have enough to send to every single person that does want one.
I want one, Petey.
See, Trace wants one, and Trace ain't getting one. We got a low budget. So here's what I am going to do. If you want to get a Christmas card, send a super chat in. We're going to enter you into a race to get a Christmas card. And if you don't want to send a super chat in, but you still want to get a Christmas card, we'll pick some of the names out of the chat that are the loudest and the proudest today. So if you'd like to get a Christmas card, I only have a few left. Otherwise, I would send one to everyone. But if you send a super chat in, we'll enter you into a duck race, which we will run at the end of our live show. Okay, so with that being said, let's get into today's menu, which is the latest news and rumors, 2024 free agent targets, and then that mailbag we were just talking about. So a lot of important ground to cover on today's Cleveland Browns report. We got Lil Beam already asking questions. If you have any question at all, hashtag Browns in the chat right now. Shaylin, my lovely girlfriend, chiming in. Our Christmas card is so cute too. I'm not that cute on it, but my dog is. So it's a good addition to your fridge just to see Cruz. She's a good little squirrel. She's a good little girl. All right, are we ready to jump into the nuts and bolts of today's show? Okay. Sip of water. All right, here we go. Let's jump into a live Cleveland Browns report. We've got a lot of topics to discuss on today's show, but I want to begin the show off with a little bit of good news here. And that is Anthony Walker has been nominated for the Cleveland Browns for the 2023 Walter Payton Man of the Year. the most prestigious award given out in the NFL every single season. If you're not familiar with the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, it goes to someone who excels on the field and is instrumental in their community and in philanthropic efforts off the field. So let's get to know Anthony Walker a little bit more, and not just him as a linebacker for the Browns on defense. He is the face of the Browns Foundation's flagship program, Stay in the Game, which encourages students to stay in school. It tries to reduce chronic absenteeism. Now, this is the first time he has been nominated for this prestigious award, so it's great to see Walker getting some recognition. Dalvin Tomlinson was a nominee for the New York Giants a few years ago. You had Joel Bitonio last year get nominated. So there are a lot of great players on this team and in this locker room, and it's awesome to see Walker get highlighted because he truly is a fantastic human being and leader for the Browns. So let's congratulate the guy. Spam his jersey number down below in the comment section. I would just hope that if someone sends Anthony Walker this video, he's going to go in the comments and he's going to see a million fives, and he's going to know the Dawg Pound has his back and shows him some love and some support. Now, switching gears, let's talk about some other news. So we all saw what happened on Monday Night Football between Jake Browning, or should I say Jake Mahomes or Patrick Browning, because that was an incredible performance by him, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, who lost Trevor Lawrence to an ankle injury in the fourth quarter. Now, Doug Peterson this morning, the head coach for Jacksonville, said QB Trevor Lawrence has just a high ankle sprain, with all other tests coming back clean. Peterson wouldn't put a timetable on Lawrence's recovery, but didn't rule him out this week and not season-ending. Now, if Trevor Lawrence was a running back, which we saw guys like Saquon Barkley go down with high ankle sprains this year and even last year, I think, you can miss up to 3 to 4 weeks. Like, a high ankle sprain for a guy who needs to cut on a dime is an extremely bad injury to get. But for a quarterback, I think it's a little bit manageable as long as you're just not mobile in the pocket. So if Trevor Lawrence does miss this week, which personally, I just don't see Trevor Lawrence playing on Sunday with him suffering a high ankle sprain that looked really bad on Monday night, just 6 days before this Week 14 matchup, we are going to see C.J. Beathard, the Iowa legend. And in his career, which has predominantly been with the San Francisco 49ers, he's completed less than 60% of his passes, 3,600 yards, 18 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 2-10 record as a starter. I was kind of thinking about this. I'm always a big believer if you take one pro player and put them on their college team, they would go win March Madness or the college football playoff with that guy. I don't know if C.J. Beathard goes to Iowa and has that offense beating Michigan or really beating anyone else for that matter. Like, they're going to beat Minnesota and Penn State, or Minnesota, Penn State, and Purdue and Illinois and whatnot, but, man, Iowa's just so bad. So that's my talking shit about Iowa for a moment. Now, with that being said, let's talk about some other rumors out there, and that is Joe Flacco. He's not starting on Sunday for the Browns. This is fake news. This is fake news. Joe Flacco will start for the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. I know Kevin Stefanski would not commit to a quarterback during his Monday Zoom press conference, but rest assured, Joe Flacco is going to start. Now, how did this rumor come about? Well, Joe Flacco reverted back to the practice squad, which is just a procedural move. He was elevated from the practice squad, which teams can do 3 times before having to add them to the 53-man roster permanently. And if you're not in a dire rush to add them, why not max out the 3 free practice squad elevations before having to kick someone else off your 53-man roster, right? You have to take someone off. Now, the low man on the totem pole is probably one of the corners, or maybe it is like Ronnie Hickman, but why take a guy off your roster when you have 3 free elevations? That is all this is for the Browns. Now, if you're thinking, but what if a team comes and poaches Joe Flacco like the Jags this week or the Bengals or someone like that? No, the Browns can protect up to 4 players on their practice squad. And even if someone who's unprotected got signed off the practice squad, the Browns have an opportunity to add them to their active roster first before letting him go to another team. So Joe Flacco going to the practice squad is not a demotion. No, it's just a procedural move. Now, if Joe Flacco, I'm not going to even go down that train of thought. No. Dorian Thompson-Robinson this year has not shown us enough to believe he can do a better job than Joe Flacco. And Flacco's only start, we saw more out of the offense than what we saw, let's just call it what it is, with a lot of Deshaun Watson starts. Like, Flacco was just bombing the ball down the field. Flacco threw the ball 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage more than any other Browns quarterback has done in the last 5 years. The guy was just throwing up Hail Marys, and sure, it wasn't great when it cost them an interception in the fourth quarter, but the Browns aren't in that game without Flacco's aggressiveness early on. So I'm a believer in Joe Flacco the rest of the way. It's also a good time to remind you, if Joe Flacco is good at one thing and one thing only, it is the postseason. Like, that is where he made his money, literally. Passing yards per game, 231.4. 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 15 starts in the postseason, where he put together a 10-5 record. I think for the Ravens, like, they would have been a lot more successful if Joe Flacco just played in the playoffs for them towards the end of his career in Baltimore. So this is Flacco hitting the prime of his playing, of his, not the prime of his career, but the best part of his season, which is playoff football. So no, I think going back to DTR would be a mistake for Cleveland. Now, what's not a mistake is checking out our awesome sponsor, which is Factor. This holiday season, you might be looking for nutritious, convenient meals to keep you energized on jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you fuel up fast for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle while tackling all your holiday to-dos. Enjoy extra convenience any time of the day with an assortment of 45-plus add-ons to suit various preferences and tastes. Choose from breakfast items like our delicious apple cinnamon pancakes, bacon and cheddar egg bites, and potato, bacon, and egg breakfast skillets. Or for an easy wellness boost, try refreshing beverage options like cold-pressed juices, shakes, and smoothies. Head to factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 and use code BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. That's code BrownsChat50 at factormeals.com/BrownsChat50 to get 50% off. Second rumor I want to tackle on today's show, Kevin Stefanski. Is he getting a contract extension? I'm going to give this one 3 Bernie heads. I want to go all the way to 4, but I do think we got to see how the rest of the season plays out before we give it a stamp of 4 Bernie heads. It's a fact. But Diana Russini recently put out an article with a bunch of news and nuggets and rumors she is hearing, and one of them was regarding Kevin Stefanski and his job security in Cleveland. Here's what Diana Russini said. The Cleveland Browns organization is thrilled with head coach Kevin Stefanski's leadership this season. Even though there has been some questions over the years and even suggestions that Cleveland should move on from the 2020 NFL Coach of the Year, Stefanski is here to stay based on conversations with multiple league sources. That seal of approval goes for general manager Andrew Berry too. My reaction? Good. This is the right decision for the Browns. Now, we know that not everyone is on the same page when it comes to Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland. And if you've watched this show before, you know where I lean. And that is, I think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach for the Browns. He's not the greatest coach in NFL history, which the Stefanski haters love to say that's what the Stefanski lovers always preach. No, that's not what I'm preaching here. But here's what I think happened. The Stefanski haters dug themselves so deep in at this point that they refuse to change their minds. And people get stubborn. We're all stubborn. We're all stubborn about different takes. So I can't hate someone for being stubborn. But what they are failing to do, or what they're unfortunately doing, and they're failing the rest of us as a result, is that they are nitpicking every single thing Stefanski does to justify their hatred and disapproval of Kevin Stefanski. It's not Kevin Stefanski. It's Jim Schwartz. Who hired Jim Schwartz? Kevin Stefanski. He should not get credit for that, though. Why? Part of being a good head coach is surrounding yourself with good assistant coaches. Kevin Stefanski has this team at 7-5 with 4 different starting quarterbacks. Do you understand that most other teams, like say the Jets, who lost just one starting quarterback, would have packed it up and that be it for the season? And that's where New York is right now? It's just exhausting, to be honest with you guys, to have to defend a coach who has a team at 7-5 and on their 4th different starting quarterback, one of which was literally sitting on the couch 2 weeks ago. He is 33-29 with 8 different starting quarterbacks since 2000. The guy has not been able to get any consistency from the most important position in sports. And yet he has a winning record overall and this year. Is he perfect? No. Does he get too cutesy at times? Yes. But you know what? There is no perfect head coach. You know, Bill Belichick was perfect. Look how he's doing right now. Yeah, I would take Andy Reid over Kevin Stefanski. Andy Reid ain't leaving Kansas City to come to Cleveland right now. So you know what? The Browns have themselves a good coach for the first time in decades. Since Schottenheimer, to be honest with you guys. And you want to run him out of town? What are you doing? Get something else to do with your time. So if you had to grade Kevin Stefanski as a coach, what letter grade would you give him? A, B, C, D, or F? I'd give Kevin Stefanski an A- grade. I really would. I think Kevin Stefanski has done a tremendous job this season keeping this locker room intact when they could have, I wouldn't say quit, but maybe gone, you know what? It ain't our year. We watched Nick Chubb go down. We watched Jack Conklin go down. Then we watched Nick Chubb go down. Then we watched Deshaun Watson go down, not once, but twice. And then Denzel Ward's missing time. Myles Garrett is playing with one good shoulder. There have been plenty of opportunities for this team to go, yeah, you know, injuries killed us this year. See you all in 2024. But give credit to Stefanski for keeping this team locked in this year. All right, third segment of today's show. Are people overreacting? You're probably asking, Petey, what the heck are you talking about? Overreacting over what? Let me tell you what they're overreacting with, because there are 4 Bernie heads coming on this one here. Yes, people are overreacting to the biggest non-story I have ever seen in my sports commentating life. It is ridiculous what people do with their time. What am I talking about? I'm talking about this, okay? Deshaun Watson being in a suite during the Browns-Rams game and people freaking out that he was not on the field next to Joe Flacco holding a tablet. Now, who's freaking out? It's all over Twitter. And I don't want to just call out one individual because a lot of people are guilty of this. But if you're looking for an example, how about an all-time Twitter follower who in his bio says what he is, and that is an outrageous Twitter account. But he tweeted out both photos, and he had some photos attached to his tweet, are from today's game. Both players are out for the season. Nick Chubb is on the field on crutches, wearing Browns gear and supporting his teammates. Deshaun Watson is sitting in the luxury seats with his wife and wearing street clothes. All right, factually, that is inaccurate. Deshaun Watson was on the field pregame with Nick Chubb and the rest of the team. We'll throw that photo on screen right now. So just missed the mark there altogether. And he acknowledged that, replying to his own tweet. But like when you stir the pot and someone goes, maybe just do an ounce of research beforehand, you can't just go, well, I didn't know. This is new information to me. Before putting out a before putting out a major strong opinion, maybe do a little bit of research on that topic. But ultimately, this comes down to one thing and one thing only. This is just pushing a narrative. There are people in this fan base that do not like Deshaun Watson. And you're not going to get everyone to get on the same page when it comes to Deshaun Watson because of his past. And I understand that. But were you mad at Deshaun Watson when he was on the sideline for the Ravens game and the Seahawks game and every other game he was injured this season? No, it wasn't a story then. So now that he's gotten surgery, he's on the field pregame, and then he goes to the box when the game starts. You're throwing a hissy fit? You better have been giving Deshaun Watson a lot of credit when he was on the sideline earlier this year if being on the sideline is super important to you. Ultimately, this is one of those moments Whereas fans, we need to take a step back and go, ultimately, we don't really know how well NFL teams operate. For all we know, it is Brown's procedure. Injured players are not on the sideline during games, right? I understand that Joe Burrow was on the sideline for the Bengals-Jags game on Monday Night Football. Good for him. Good for the Bengals. But every team has their own rules. Jed Wills was not on the sideline for this game. Nick Chubb was not. By the way, all those guys went to the suite like Deshaun Watson once the game started. But only Watson gets picked on for it. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. So, Trace, we won't go to this next graphic here. But it makes no sense that people are going to nitpick Deshaun Watson going to the suite after being on the field during pregame. But when he's on the sideline earlier this year, you're not going to give him any credit for that. And you don't have that same energy for Nick Chubb, as you should, by the way, for them being in the suite when they're also injured. It's just people having nothing to do with their time. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to tune in, by the way, for our watch parties every single Sunday. Big game this Sunday against the Jags, so make sure you check our watch party out if you have not already. All right. Grade Kevin Stefanski as a coach. Let's see. And one thing I kind of forgot to mention in my rant, I could see why Joe Burrow feels the need to sit on the sideline and help Jake Browning out, who has, I think that was his second or third career NFL start. Joe Flacco does not need Deshaun Watson hovering over his shoulder, telling him how to look at a tablet. I think Joe Flacco knows what he's doing at this point in his career, right? I don't really know what Deshaun Watson could offer Joe Flacco. Like, when the game's going on and you're a 38-year-old veteran, I don't think you're dying to have a guy who's 10 years younger than you offer you some words of wisdom mid-game. That's probably not a good time when the bullets are flying to go, if you don't mind, let me just micromanage for a second. When you're a 24-year-old, first, second-year player, yeah, you need a second pair of eyes. When you're nearly 40 years old, you've seen a lot of tape. You know what you're looking for. All right, Rob says A. Christopher Stofira says B. Tyman the Buckeye says B. Night Fright says B+. Wolfstan says B+. Lil Beam B+. Cool Guy A-. AFX Apocalypse, a funny dude, F for fantastic. Now, I think I saw some super chats fly in, Mr. Trace Gerard. All right, let's catch up on some of the super chats before our second segment today. Joshua Miller, best dipping sauce for chicken nuggets / fingers. We got Chick-fil-A for lunch today. I usually get Chick-fil-A sandwich, but they've got a great 30 count deal, so I find 2 other people to share that with.
Yep.
And we each get 10 nuggets. And like Chick-fil-A sauce if you're at Chick-fil-A. But if we're just talking generic sauces, I love a good barbecue sauce with chicken tenders.
Can't go wrong with barbecue. Hot take, a good honey mustard is hard to beat.
Yeah.
Like, a good honey mustard is really good. Bad honey mustard stinks.
So I would go with barbecue, though, as my number one.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm in a drive-thru and they're like, what sauce do you want with your chicken tenders? I'm going to say barbecue.
Yeah.
Josh, asking the hard-hitting questions as always. Ken G, what's going on? Juicing raffle races. Yeah. So right now, by the way, if you're just joining the show, I've got a few leftover Christmas cards, and I wish I could send one to everyone that wants one, but unfortunately, I don't have enough Christmas cards to do that. So we're going to do a race at the end of the show. If you super chat, you get entered into that race, and I'll also add 1 or 2 free entries from the live chat for people that are the loudest and proudest members of the channel. So super chat, and we guarantee you get entered into that race for a Christmas card at the end of today's show. Really quickly, quick plug once again, plug God. We got the Q&A at the end of the show. So get those questions in #Browns. And as always, if you super chat, you skip the line, and we guarantee your question gets on screen. Okay, are we ready to rock and roll into our second segment? Wolfstand, sweet and sour. You know, I want to like sweet and sour. I think everyone's got that food that they want to like, and they actually, at least maybe keep trying, and it's just not working.
Well, it's sweet and sour. It's like sometimes it's not that great. Like I think McDonald's sweet and sour is like, but like a good sweet and sour sauce, I'm like, I'm not just dipping chicken tenders in that. I'm putting that on like Chinese food or like what, you know what I mean? I don't know.
If there's one food I wish I could like, but I just don't, mashed potatoes.
Really?
Yeah, I love potatoes. I love baked potatoes, but I do not like mashed potatoes.
Is it the consistency?
It's not I think it's just the addition. One, I'm not a milk guy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you add a lot of milk and creams and things
that
like
makes
that,
sense.
you lose me. I don't like sour cream. I don't like mayo.
Okay.
So
do you like ranch?
I do love
Okay.
Who doesn't love
Yeah,
You know,
ranch is great.
I had a Billy on B-Dubs, if you're listening. Imagine if they did ranch with barbecue dipping sauce. Like they reversed it.
Yes.
I'd be curious to know how that goes.
That would be really good.
That could be interesting.
That would be good.
$1 billion idea. Okay, are we ready to jump into today's show? All right, here we go. Let's talk, or our second show, I should say, free agent targets right now. Coming up on today's show, I know that we start all over again. Yeah. Oh boy, that's gonna get the chat riled up right there. A little bit. All right, here we go. Take two. Do you guys like the authenticity of a live show? You get to see how the sausage is made. Here we go. Now, I know we have a long ways to go until free agency, but I thought we could pause on just the season momentarily and check out some free agents for the Browns in 2024. Now, let's begin this conversation off by looking at Cleveland's marquee free agents coming up. So, guys that are set to be free agents in 2024. Marquise Goodwin, Harrison Bryant, Jordan Akins, Jordan Elliott, Maurice Hurst, Shelby Harris, Zadarius Smith, Anthony Walker, Sion Takitaki, and Grant Delpit. There are some other guys, but I think these are the 5 or 10 biggest free agents coming up. So of these 10 players, before we look at some other free agent targets, 5 guys I would re-sign. Grant Delpit should get an extension before the year is done. I've seen everything I need to see. I'm all in on 22. I want to see Anthony Walker come back. He signed another 1-year contract. He is a major part of this locker room. He's a very big leader. I want to see A-Walk come back. Zadarius Smith, I understand that maybe it's been a bit disappointing from him when it comes to sack productions, but he has still generated a lot of pressures. I'd like to see Zadarius Smith return. Jordan Elliott, did not think I would be saying this a year or so ago, but Jordan Elliott has had a career year, which, what do you know, contract year. Who could have seen that one coming? So if the Browns can bring him back for a cheap contract, I'd be interested. And the same goes for Maurice Hurst as well. Now, 5 guys I would let walk. Marquise Goodwin, unfortunately, just has not worked out. Harrison Bryant, I'm not against Harrison Bryant. I think he's a good tight end, but I don't want to see the Browns overpay Harrison Bryant. Jordan Akins has not been that red zone target I think we all hoped he would have been. Shelby Harris, my favorite signing of free agency if you followed me in the offseason. Just getting up there in the age column, 1-year vet contract. Probably good to go a different direction and get some youth in the position. And then Sion Takitaki. I like Takitaki. He's having a great year coming off an ACL injury. I actually would kind of like to see Takitaki come back. I don't know if the Browns are going to want to go another rental 1-year linebacker for Walker and Takitaki, both 2 straight years. Now, that being said, let's check out the 5 biggest needs for Cleveland in a rough order. I'm going to go wide receivers, number 1. Defensive tackle and defensive end is 2 and 3. Linebacker at 4 and tight end at 5. We can debate about rearranging this list. So now let's look at 25 free agents at these 5 positions of need, starting with wide receiver. I think the biggest name is going to be T. Higgins this offseason. Don't be surprised if Cincinnati, kind of like Devontae Adams, signs an extension or signs a contract with the Bengals and is immediately traded in like an NBA-style sign and trade. Michael Pittman for the Colts. Mike Evans for the Buccaneers, 10 straight seasons of over 1,000 yards. Marquise Brown and Darnell Mooney are 2 younger guys who bring some speed. Now, I've seen a lot of people talk about signing Mike Evans, okay? Mike Evans would definitely bring some jump ball ability. And Deshaun Watson as a quarterback, well, what kind of receivers did he really thrive with in Houston? It was the jump ball type of receivers like DeAndre Hopkins. Darnell Mooney is interesting. He had a phenomenal start to his career in Chicago. He has cooled off the last 2 years, but he could definitely bring a much-needed speed element to this wide receiver room. So with that being said, I think I would lean towards Darnell Mooney. He's younger. He'd be cheaper, but we got a long ways to go to figure out who to target in free agency. Now, before we get on to the rest of the free agent targets, there is no offseason here at the Cleveland Browns Report. We arguably, almost like as bizarre as it might sound, pick up our coverage in the offseason because we know, hey, not everyone else is going to put their foot on the gas in the offseason, but we're not going to slow down. So make sure you subscribe. That way you do not miss a single thing when the offseason kicks in. Moving on to some free agent defensive tackles. We talked about Jordan Elliott and Maurice Hurst. I'd be open to bringing both those guys back. Sheldon Rankins, a longtime New York Jet, and now with the Houston Texans, he's having a really good year. Teair Tart and Grover Stewart, some AFC South kids. Grover Stewart is going to be a much more expensive player. I don't think the Browns are going to have big bucks at D tackle again. So I'm looking at Teair Tart. If the Browns decide, you know what, we'll bring back either Elliott or Hurst, maybe they decide to go with a Tennessee Titan like Teair Tart, someone I was a big fan of last year in free agency. He's not going to fill the stat sheet. He's not going to have a lot in the box score, but he's going to open up other opportunities for other players. He's going to be a tree stump in the middle of that defensive line. Ultimately, there are some bigger names out there at defensive tackle, but after spending a 3-year, 4-year, $57 million contract on Dalvin Tomlinson, I do not expect the Browns to break the bank in back-to-back off seasons at the same position. So, yes, Chris Jones and Christian Wilkins are free agents. Lower your sights at defensive tackle. I think we're going to see an earlier draft pick at defensive tackle. Let the rookie and Siaki Ika battle it out for a spot in terms of the rotation. And maybe another cheap veteran re-signing or signing, kind of like Maurice Hurst and Shelby Harris. Now, like I mentioned, Siaki Ika has not played at all this year. He's been a healthy scratch. And I know that frustrates people, and it kind of frustrates me as well because I want to see what you have in the guy. But I don't want to just play him for the sake of playing him because you want to see what you have in him. I'll tell you what you have right now in your other 4 starting rotational defensive tackles. And that is really good and highly consistent play. So you're not going to take snaps away from Dalvin Tomlinson or Jordan Elliott to see if Ika can do anything. And I like Maurice Hurst and Shelby Harris more. So yeah, if this team was not 7-5, but they were, 3-7 or 3-10 or whatever, I'd be open to having a little bit of an exploration moment to see what you have in the rookie. But for now, keep going with the veterans. They are playing at a very high level. This is not a time to mess around. Now, before we get on to the rest of the free agent targets on today's show, Prize Picks is back, and they have an awesome deal for the Dawg Pound. But let me tell you all about Prize Picks first. Here's how Prize Picks works. You pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and the more selections you make, well, that increases your potential winnings. So take this Sunday's slate of games. I'm taking the more on Bryce Young and Matthew Stafford's passing yards. We saw Stafford start to heat up on Sunday. Bryce Young is going to get that boost that you get after your head coach gets fired. I like the more on Drake London's receiving yards against the Buccaneers and the more on Javonte Williams' rushing yards for Denver against a bad Chargers defense. Now, you can get up to a $100 deposit match when you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100. The link for that is in the comments and description of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's talk about edge rusher now, because we saw last offseason, even after the Browns signed Okoronkwo and drafted Isaiah McGuire, they still wanted to add more depth to that position, so they traded for Zadarius Smith. So don't rule out the Browns adding more at the edge rusher spot. Who could it be? Zadarius Smith is going to be a free agent. Chase Young, Danielle Hunter, Jonathan Greenard, Leonard Floyd. Now, I'm open to Zadarius Smith returning. I was not open to Jadeveon Clowney returning after the way he exited the facility last year, but I know there's going to be a lot of Buckeyes fans watching right now that want to see Chase Young come back to the Buckeye State. And he is with the 49ers on the last year of his rookie contract, and I bet San Francisco is right down the middle when it comes to bringing back Chase Young. They gave up a third-round pick for him, so it's not like they gave up the farm system for a guy that becomes a shoo-in to get a contract extension. No, I don't think they're going to compound a mistake if they do not like what they get out of Chase Young this year by giving him a big contract extension in the offseason. So I think there is a very real chance Chase Young hits the open market. Now, between these two guys, obviously Chase Young has a little bit more of a pop because he's younger, defensive rookie of the year, and of course he did a lot of great things in Columbus. But if Zadarius Smith ends the year on a high note, I might lean towards Zadarius Smith. I know from a lot of boots on the ground and ears on walls and whatnot in a lot of facilities that back when the trade deadline was going down, a lot of teams were interested in Montez Sweat over Chase Young. Montez Sweat ended up going for a second-round pick. Now, I think there was a bit of an overpay by the Bears, but regardless, I think people need to lower their expectations for Chase Young. I would lean towards Zadarius Smith. Moving on to some free agent linebackers. You've got Anthony Walker, Levante David, Blake Cashman's having a really good year for the Texans, Azeez Al-Shahir for the Tennessee Titans, and then Frankie Louvu for the Carolina Panthers. Who am I picking out of this group right here? I'm picking number 5, Anthony Walker, a captain of this team for 2 straight years, the heart and soul of the middle of this defense, the leader and everything. I would love to see the Browns bring back Anthony Walker. I believe the Browns will re-sign Anthony Walker. If I'm Andrew Berry and you've gotten the best out of your defense as you had this year as your tenure as the GM of Cleveland, I don't think the first thing I would do in the offseason is let's move on from the captain that's the middle linebacker. That doesn't scream like a good idea to me. So I think Anthony Walker will return with the Browns. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be a 1, 2, or 3-year contract, but I am pretty confident that Walker will come back to Cleveland. Final position of need for the Brownies. I'm going to go with tight ends. You've got David Njoku, but after that, you've got Harrison Bryant and Jordan Akins on expiring contracts. So maybe you see Gerald Everett, Colby Parkinson. Parkinson is a really good blocking tight end. I feel like if the Browns are going to go for a tight end, they're not going to swing for a big, sexy receiving tight end. They've got that in Njoku. They're going to go for a guy to help in the ground game and a blocking tight end, and Parkinson can do that. Pharaoh Brown, Harrison Bryant is definitely a candidate to return, and Hunter Henry. Now, Pharaoh Brown is an interesting guy because, one, he was with the Browns last season. He joined them mid-year. He's from Northeast Ohio, and this year with the Patriots, sure, 170 yards and one touchdown does not jump off the screen, but he has been an excellent run-blocking tight end. And with the Browns having interest in him last season, don't be surprised if they pick up the phone and see if he wants to come back and play for his hometown team. Now, before we get on out of here, we talked about 25 names. I want to know who you want the Browns to sign. Is it one of those 25 guys we looked at? Is it someone else I left off my list? Let me know down below in the comment section. All right. I love when we finish the video, I look in the chat, and it has nothing to do with the video sometimes. I look down, I see Ty Man go, I caught a 2-foot catfish this past summer. How did we get to that point? All right, AFX says OBJ. Night Fright says Chase Young. Tim Green, keep Bryant, release Akins. Harrison can block. Yeah, Harrison Bryant might not look like a blocking tight end because he's got kind of a skinny frame, let's be honest. But he can move people around. So I like Harrison Bryant in that role. Joshua Miller with a $5 super chat. 2/3 of the way through the season, and knowing what we know now, what's 1 or 2 things we could have done differently or would go back and change? That's a great question, Josh. All right, let's go back in time for a moment. If the Browns could go back, I think they would have signed DeAndre Hopkins. Like, do you guys remember in June and July? And I know you guys do because if you're watching right now, you're a diehard. You don't give up any time in the year. There were serious conversations, Trace, that DPJ was better than DeAndre Hopkins in 2023. Yeah. What are we doing? Like, that's probably one that we go back in time. Like, I remember cutting and sucked into that, like, DPJ, he's younger, he's cheaper, he's coming off an 800-yard season, he's about to have a breakout year. And I remember in one of my videos going, stop for a second. are we really comparing DeAndre Hopkins to Donovan Peoples-Jones here? Like,
Yeah,
that's getting sucked in as a fan to like
that's a
homegrown homer take of like, I want him to succeed. So, Josh, that's one thing. I think they would have signed DeAndre Hopkins if they knew how the wide receiver play would be this year. So that's number one. Number two, I would say maybe they don't pick up Jed Wills' fifth-year option. He played well right before he got injured. I think that might be one that Andrew Berry could go back and redo. I think he likes all the additions he made on defense. Offensively, probably add a veteran running back like Leonard Fournette in the dog days of August.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what about adding a running back? Obviously, you don't know Nick Chubb's going to get hurt.
Yeah, I'm going to exclude the idea of Nick Chubb getting hurt, but, like, that might have been one. But, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, free agents. Like, the difficult thing to answer this question, Josh, and we'll include this in the mailbag, is, like, the Browns should have got this guy. Well, for all we know, the Browns did try to get that player, and he didn't want to come play for the Browns. So, like, there are some things that are out of their control, right? But I think DeAndre Hopkins definitely would have been something the Browns wish they could go back and do. Defense, I don't think they would undo this Darius Smith deal. I don't think they would undo Dalvin Tomlinson, Juan Thornhill. Like, all those have been pretty solid moves.
What about pulling off the Pat Surtain trade?
No, you're good at corner. I think the Browns would not undo Cade York. It has worked out very nicely for them to have Dustin Hopkins instead. Tim Green, draft a running back at some point. That might have been, like, if you look back at the draft.
Like, you could have gotten Tajay.
Yeah.
Tajay would have been a good.
Tajay Spears out of Tulane. Sal's making a good point here. Maybe they don't trade Josh Dobbs.
Maybe.
I mean, did you guys see how Dobbs played the last game or two in Minnesota? I think they probably would have been better off with Dobbs in the games that P.J. Walker played, but I don't think they were going to go to the postseason with Josh Dobbs. So, or at least win in the postseason. Now,
is it fair to say that Josh Dobbs didn't beat like a really good football team in that little run?
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, the Browns got a fifth-round pick for Josh Dobbs. They didn't get nothing out of it. So I'm actually not even convinced the Browns would undo the Josh Dobbs trade. But I think between that and not getting DeAndre Hopkins, those two things are the big, like, maybe potential misses. All right, we're going to have a mailbag in just a moment, so get those questions in right now. And then, like Joshua Miller's Super Chat, we're going to enter all Super Chats into a race to get a Christmas card from yours truly at the end of the show. No matter the amount, you can send 99 cents in if you want. I'm also going to pick one or two names from the chat at the end to get free entries. But, yeah. If you want to get entered into a race to win a Christmas card, I wish I could send them to everyone, but we only have a limited amount, so I figured this would kind of be the most fun and fair way to decide who gets a Christmas card. All right, are we ready to rock and roll?
Not only does a Christmas card come with a picture of Petey, but also Petey's dog.
Yeah. Joshua Miller, go back and not sign Conklin to an extension. Like, Jack Conklin's not even 30 years old. Like, we see some tackles play really good football past the age of 30. So I don't think the Browns regret signing Jack Conklin. It's just a bummer that he got hurt in the first quarter of the season. Okay. With that being said, are we ready? Oh, Tim Green got his crying Big Ben pick. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Tim Green, if you want a Christmas card, super chat. Okay. Here we go. Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report, answering questions from our live show during Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Marty with the first question. What's up, Marty McFly? Should the Browns pursue Chase Young in free agency? Good question. I know Chase Young has a lot of the hearts of the Buckeye State because of his time in Columbus. Unfortunately, since his rookie season in the NFL, it has not been too glamorous. Like, tearing his ACL was definitely a factor, but there were some concerns about him as a leader and whatnot in that Washington organization. And I think there's a reason why we saw Montez Sweat go for a draft pick higher than Chase Young at the NFL trade deadline. Now, the Browns are always looking to add some depth and some reinforcements to the edge rusher position. We saw them kind of come out of nowhere with that Zadarius Smith trade. So when it comes to adding more edge rushers, with Smith being a free agent and Miles and Okoronkwo and Isaiah McGuire and Alex Wright really only being the defensive ends under contract in 2024, I could see the Browns pursuing adding a defensive end. However, if Chase Young is going to command a much bigger market than he deserves just because he was a second overall pick and had a good rookie season, then I'm going to pass on Chase Young. If you can get Chase Young for cheap, yeah, then why not? I think Chase Young could have a high ceiling as a player. But no, I'm not interested in chasing after my tail, hoping Chase Young can be that guy his rookie season and add on to that. So I understand that's not going to be a popular opinion with Buckeyes fans, but that's my honest opinion. So would you sign Chase Young? Yes or no? Surface level, sure, I'm interested. But if I find out that the Browns made an offer that pays him, I don't know, say $13 million a season, that feels maybe even on the lower side, and another team offers him like $18 million, no, I'm not willing to go to $19 million for Chase Young. Joshua Miller, next one up. What's going on, dude? 2/3 of the way through the season, and knowing what we know now, which one or two things we could have done differently or would go back and change? Josh, excellent question. First thing that comes to mind is DeAndre Hopkins, actually. I think the Browns, if they had an opportunity to get in Marty McFly's time machine and go back in time, they would sign DeAndre Hopkins in the summer. Like, if you think about it, it's pretty wild to think that in the months of June and July, we were arguing about who's better, D-Hop or DPJ. D-Hop is a much better wide receiver now. He's always been a better wide receiver, but it's abundantly clear now to those who did not believe that over the summer. Sure, DPJ was coming off an 800-plus yard season. He was in his rookie contract. He was cheaper. He could have been a long-term fit for you, but ultimately, given Deshaun Watson's skill set of throwing it up to jump ball receivers, DeAndre Hopkins would have been a much better addition to this Browns offense. So I think that's one. And then there's trading Josh Dobbs. When Josh Dobbs got traded the second time to the Vikings, I remember talking to our Vikings host here, Patrick Seatman, and after a game or two, he was all in. I was like, hey, just want you to know, like, it's going to come crashing down to earth, and it's going to come crashing down hard. And then we saw that out of Dobbs his last game or two, especially against the Bears on Monday Night Football. So I don't know if Andrew Berry would actually go back in time and change it. Like, the Browns won with P.J. Walker and a little bit of DTR, so I don't know how many results are flipped by having Josh Dobbs. And I think Joe Flacco is a better option for the Browns the rest of the way than Josh Dobbs is right now. Like, if you could pick one QB to have on the Browns for the rest of the season, would it be Flacco or Dobbs? I would take Flacco. Chubathon, next one up. Sign Jarvis Landry or a different wide receiver. There's no one coming in from the free agency market at this point in December to save the season for Cleveland, right? I just do not see the Browns adding any more veteran players like that unless it's because of an injury that pops up. No, I think Juice is done. He was kind of cooked-ish his last year in Cleveland, and then last year in New Orleans, he did not show you a whole lot of reason to believe that he can get signed in December and really add any valuable contribution to a team's offense. If you want to add him for a locker room because of an injury, sure, I can get behind that. But for now, no, I'm going to pass on Jarvis Landry. Now, before we get on to the rest of the questions on today's show, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you're like, Petey, can you explain Prize Picks to me, Michael Scott style, like I'm 5 years old? Let me do that for you. All you have to do is pick more or less on player staff projections. And the more players you include in your entry, the bigger the potential winnings can be. So take Sunday, for example. I've got the more on all of these. Bryce Young's passing yards. Remember, after a team fires their head coach, there's always that interim boost. I see that coming for Bryce Young. I like the more on Matthew Stafford against the Ravens. I like the more on Drake London's receiving yards, under 50 for what I think is one of the most talented young wide receivers in our game. I like the more there. And then Javonte Williams, more on his rushing yards against a bad Chargers run defense. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use code CLNS for a deposit match up to $100 for first-time users. All that information is in the comments and description of today's video. That's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. AFX Apocalypse, what about trading for Daron Payne? Well, no trades can happen until the new league year starts in March of 2024. And I don't see Washington trading Daron Payne 1 year later. One, he's been good for the Commanders this year, so it's not like they are dying to get a bad player off their roster. So if that's not the case, I don't see why Washington would be interested in moving on from a guy they just gave a big contract to. So this one, unfortunately, is going to go down in the graveyard of like 2021 to 2022 Browns rumors. Little Beam, should the Dawg Pound sign Jerick McKinnon next year? An excellent receiving back. It's very difficult to talk about running backs for the Browns in 2024 without having a good idea as to when Nick Chubb will return. Like, I don't want to bet against Nick Chubb ever, but he only got his second surgery done a few weeks ago. So if it takes you, like OBJ took 12 months, and everyone's different, knees and everything, if it takes Nick Chubb 11 to 12 months to recover from a torn ACL, I mean, we're looking at a October, November return of 2024. Now, knowing Nick Chubb, it's probably going to be a faster timeline, but he still might miss the beginning of the year, and even when he does return, he might not be 100% the first few games back. So Jerick McKinnon's a good receiving back, although I don't think he's a good fit for the Browns at this point of his career, given, he's a bit older and, that's pretty much it. I'm just being extremely ageist. Icy Prods, what's going on, dude? Draft the Penn State running back. I am open to the Browns adding a running back in this draft as we just talk about running backs in general because, like, Jerome Ford has not shown us a ton. Singleton, right? Nick said, I was like, I can't remember his first name. Nick Singleton. I am open to drafting a running back just in general, whether it's Singleton or someone else. The Browns had their second-round selection. I don't think that should be used on a running back, but I could be persuaded into like a third or fourth-round pick being used on a running back. XX Epic Jet XX. If the Browns make the playoffs and lose in the wild card, would you consider that a successful season with all the injuries? I would. I know that's loser talk, but man, if I tell you in August the Browns are going to be starting Joe Flacco in December, you're probably thinking that team did not make the playoffs. So, given all the injuries they have sustained, even if they do lose, and that would suck, for this locker room to go to the playoffs and get a little bit of playoff experience, know what it's like that whole week in January preparing for a playoff game while the rest of the league is out there golfing down in Florida, that's an advantage going into next season to have that experience. So even if they lose in the first round of the playoffs, this is a loser talk here, I understand that, but I would not say this was a disaster of a year given all the injuries they sustained. Now, before we get on with the rest of our mailbag, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach our big milestone by Christmas, 30,000 subscribers. And right now, we got to 29,350. So I need 20 of you watching right now who have not subscribed to go ahead and do so. Tim Green, what's going on, dude? What is the status of Amari Cooper? Well, for everyone watching right now, we are recording this during our live show, which airs Tuesday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. So I'm sure this answer is going to change throughout the week, but as of now, he is in concussion protocol, and, well, there's a very realistic chance he stays in concussion protocol and misses this Sunday's game against Jacksonville, but as I film on Tuesday, it's impossible to say what's going to happen on Sunday. Night Fright. Do whatever it takes to trade up to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. I know it'll never happen, but a guy can wish. At least you know. Listen, and I'm going to continue to say this because I'm that confident in it. My What's Your Best Take of the Year award is that the day after the draft last year, I said Marvin Harrison Jr. goes number 2 no matter who's picking. He's that talented of a player that even if you don't need a wide receiver as bad as another position, you won't pass on him. So whether it's, like, I guess maybe the Patriots could go Drake May if the Bears go Caleb Williams, but I think Marvin Harrison goes number 2 pretty much no matter what. He's not getting past number 3. As long as, if Drake May goes 2 and number 1 is Caleb Williams. But I'm confident that Marvin Harrison does not get out of the top 3. And the Browns would have to trade their second-round pick this year, their first-round pick in 2025, which they finally get back, and probably their 2026 first-rounder, 2 firsts and a second to get up to number 3. Yeah, can't do it. But I appreciate the honesty. Ken G, can the Browns run the table and win out? And what's your prediction? They sit at 7-5. Their 5 games remaining are against the Jags without Trevor Lawrence, I think, as of right now on Tuesday. Against the Bears, very winnable. And then they've got the Jets. They've got someone, and they have the Jets, and then they have the Bengals to round out the year. Who do they play after the Bears? That's why I can't remember right now. Quick Google search. After the Bears, the Texans on Christmas Eve. That's right. So that Texans game is looking like a tough game, to be honest with you. But can the Browns run the table and win out? Yeah. I mean, they could definitely knock off the Jags without Trevor Lawrence, or at least an injured Trevor Lawrence if he does play. They can beat the Bears. They can go down to Houston and beat the Texans. They're not unbeatable. They can definitely beat whoever's starting for the Jets at quarterback, and they can take care of Jake Browning and the Bengals. So it's not impossible to win out. Ultimately, in the last 5 games, I think the Browns are going to go 3-2. I think they're going to finish the year 10-7, and that should be, I say with 99% certainty, enough to make the postseason. Levi Mayfield, next up on the show. Do you think Miles is actually hurt after first time in his career not recording a single tackle? He didn't just record a single tackle. Like, he was not on the box score whatsoever in the Rams game for the first time in his NFL career. Yeah, I think Myles Garrett is playing through something serious. Like, if Myles Garrett was a quarterback and he needed his shoulder a lot more than a defensive end does, I am sure we'd see Myles Garrett be shut down for the year. He's a warrior. He does not want to miss a snap. He does not want to miss a game. So I think Myles Garrett is playing through something, and I would not be surprised if after the year we get a little notification on a Friday afternoon in January or February that goes, Myles Garrett's getting a procedural cleanup shoulder surgery. Like, that's not a big deal to get shoulder surgery, but I think Myles Garrett is playing through something. Cool Guy Called Zone, last question. When will you do the mock draft video? Will it be during the final weeks of the NFL, regular season, the playoffs, or the off season? Yes. How about all 3? I probably won't do my first mock draft until after the season. Now, if the Browns get eliminated from playoff contention before Week 18, maybe I do that video then. But I do not want to do a mock draft until the season is over, because I feel like as a fan base, once you start talking mock drafts, you've kind of raised the white flag on this year. And I don't want to get to that point just yet. So I will probably do my first mock draft as long as the Browns are in playoff contention in Week 18, after Week 18. If they make the playoffs, then after the playoffs. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. If you enjoyed our coverage of the Browns, hit me up on Twitter, at Matthew Petey, or X, whatever it's called. I'm always talking Brownies over there, and I would love to get some additional followers and support over on Twitter. All right. Ken G, you're very welcome. Okay. Keep Cooper or trade for a younger receiver? Keep Amari Cooper. He has been the most consistent thing in this wide receiver room. Like, if Amari Cooper puts up 1,000 yards this year, he's the first Browns receiver to go back-to-back 1,000 yards either ever or in a long time. I can't remember which one of those two it is. All right, we're going to do a Christmas card super chat race. So if you want to be entered into that super chat race, super chat any amount, and we get you added. And then we'll see who goes home with the Christmas card, and I'll mail it to you. So, Jacob Smith, what's going on, dude? Cool guy. I'm not going to watch college football. It's so confusing. What's confusing? It's football. What's confusing? I will say, like, speaking of college football, unpopular opinion, I wanted Alabama to get left out of the playoff for selfish reasons because I hate them, but the committee got it right.
They nailed it.
And anyone that says Florida State should be in, immediately ask them who would win right now, Florida State or Alabama. If they say Alabama, then the whole point of the committee is to find the best 4 teams. Not the most deserving teams, the best 4 teams.
Yeah, I don't like seeing Florida State fans blaming Alabama. They should be blaming Georgia for not doing their job.
Yeah.
Georgia should have just curb stomped Alabama, and maybe they would have gotten in.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. So we've got 3 entries right now for the Christmas card. Let's do 2 from the chat. So start spamming B in the chat, and I'm going to pick 2 names out.
How do you know Bama would win? Well, Florida State's quarterback is...
Did you watch Bama? Did you watch... Yeah, Bama beat Georgia, and Florida State struggled
to beat
Louisville.
Yeah.
That's how I know. All right, spam B if you want to get entered into the Christmas card race. I'm going to pick 2 names. I'm just going to close my eyes and then, like, pause the chat for a moment, and whoever's name is at the bottom, that's who I'm going to roll with. Or if you want to guarantee a spot in the race, super chat, no matter the amount, and you get added to our Christmas card race. I only have a few, so I'm going to have one go out to a viewer from today's live show. All right, start spamming B. Start spamming B. If you don't win, you're more than welcome to Super Chat to guarantee a spot. All right, Mr. Trace. Ready, coming down from 3,
2, 1, go.
Joshua Miller. Oh, he's already in it. All right, again. 3, 2, 1. Levi Mayfield.
Levi Mayfield is in.
All right, spam B. Spam B for the Browns. One more free entry. Sal just got entered with a Super Chat. Let's go. We'll add Sal to it, so we're up to
5.
5 duckies.
5.
We can get 6 right now. Here we go. Spam B. Ready? Sal, your show is the greatest Browns content. Thanks for your effort. Sal, thank you so much for the Super Chat, man. I really appreciate you supporting the show like that and those kind words. 3, 2, 1. Nathan Bontrager. Nathan Bontrager. Should we do one more? 2 is a weird number. 3 free entries.
3. Why not?
Yeah.
It's a season of giving.
Yeah, spam B. Season of giving. You're right. One more free entry. Spam B. Keep it going. We'll give you guys 3 seconds to reset. Spam B. Did I say 3? Spam.
Yep.
I'm so used to saying spam 3 probably. Spam B. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Greasy Flight. Greasy Flight. Could be sending a letter up to Ontario. Okay. So, unless we get another Super Chat in the next 60 seconds or so, we're going to run our duck race for a Matthew Peterson Christmas card to your home. So
30 seconds? A minute?
Let's do 30-second duck race. 30-second duck race. 30-second duck race. Okay. So, one more call for any more Super Chats to get entered into our duck race for a Christmas card. If you want to show Trace the contestants who we have so far there, that way no one accuses us of collusion. Ken G, the best race in all sporting events. Oh, the duck race is elite, dude. We're actually going to go back to the basics, too. We're going to do a duck race. Okay. Here we go. Let's show them the duckies, and then let's do this thing. All right. Here we go. One last call for a Super Chat. Otherwise, we're going to send the duckies on their way. We have, obviously, you guys can see it's a website. We have no control over this. Do you want to give a prediction on who do you think wins? Which duck looks like they are ready to swim fast?
I don't know, man. Greasy Flight as a B makes me feel like he's just going to be flying down the river.
I'm liking Sal. I think Sal looks like a fast duck.
Sal was a late Super Chat entry.
Yeah.
I like Sal, too.
Mm-hmm. All right. What's going on, Jeremy?
Best Christmas movie is Die Hard.
Okay. Let's send the ducks on their way. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and they're off. All right, we have Levi Mayfield having an early lead, but no duck is really showing a whole lot of grit or a whole lot of speed right now. We've got a bunch of MAC receivers here. Early on here, but I see Joshua Miller. Did Joshua Miller have 2 ducks in there? Oh, 2 Super Chats. That makes sense. Now we got Greasy Flight making some moves. Okay, Greasy Flight with 3 seconds left. This is a very fast race. Greasy Flight's going to win. Oh, my God. I did not realize how quickly 30 seconds was.
I called it.
Greasy Flight is going to get a Christmas card sent to Ontario, Canada. Greasy Flight, congratulations. Greasy Flight, email me, Matthew@chatsports.com. Very simple email. Matthew@chatsports.com with your address so I can mail you that Christmas card. I did not realize how fast 30 seconds was. Now I know. Yeah, Shay's known this whole time. Now I know. All right, what do you want to show me? Okay. No, we're all done. All right, we're going to sign off. Jeremy has some memes he wants to show me, so I got to attend to those matters. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another live show. I always appreciate people that take time out of their Tuesday afternoons to come hang out with us. Greasy Flight, email me, Matthew@chatsports.com. Sal, Ken G, Josh, thank you guys for your Super Chats. Thank you so much for your support. Always appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and Usually I give a trivia question for my trivia game tonight, but Trace is coming to trivia
I
tonight.
can't hear it.
He can't hear it.
I can walk out.
No, I can't think of a good one off the top of my head that's like shortened to the punch. So we'll let you guys go. Go Brownies.